Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Kicking It with Jess and Soph. Obviously, I always go back and forth about whether it should be Soph and Jess or Jess and Soph. I guess it doesn't really matter, right?
No, I think what we do is when it's on your channel, it's Jess and Soph. When it's on mine, Soph and Jess. But somehow Jess and Soph rolls off the tongue a little bit easier.
I don't know why I feel like Soph and Jess rolls off the tongue a little bit better. I don't know. Every time I'm like, I think that's the way I want to do it. But nevertheless, welcome you guys to another episode of our little collaboration that we've been doing. Like, this is what our third episode of this, maybe?
Yeah, episode 3. Yeah, pretty cool. I'm loving it.
Yeah, yeah, so it's good, you guys are probably, like, looking behind me and saying, like, "Where are you?" Like, you're not in your usual spot. I kinda told you guys, a couple of days ago that I would, you know, kind of unveil, if you follow me on Twitter and on Instagram, like, I've moved to the UK, so I'm in the London area, I'm out here, yes, the Beatles and all that kinda stuff,
Well, they're
but
from Liverpool, but yeah.
yeah. And mostly I'm here to, like, I don't know, cover football, This is where the sport is at mostly. I have to be honest though, Soph, like, I am gonna miss days out at the bank and stuff. I did find myself feeling like, "Oh, I'm gonna miss that," especially because now, like, we signed Bale and all that kinda stuff, but I'll be closer to the Arsenal, which is cool. So you'll have to go up to the bank and represent for me even though you're a Galaxy girl.
Well, it just so happens I'm going tonight.
Oh, amazing! Oh, yeah.
8 o'clock kickoff, Seattle Sounders, under the lights, Friday night in LA. Going down the 110, cannot wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. Should be a great game between those two teams. LAFC are on fire right
Yeah.
now. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll give Max a hug for you.
Oh my gosh, please do, please do. So, like, okay, we're obviously gonna get into Arsenal, but I have to ask you, like, how did you feel when it looked like for a moment LAFC could have been signing Luis Suarez? I mean, for a minute there, it looked like it was likely.
So you got me all jazzed because I saw your tweet, and then I went to Tony because Tony is a LAFC fan. I don't know how I let this happen. I'm like, I would never let you be a Tottenham fan. How the heck is it you've become an LAFC fan?
Mm,
And I told her about Suarez. She goes, shut the front door, the whole lot. And I said, it looks like it's really possible. I was just going to hand over MLS Cup, hand over everything. I mean, it shut the front door. It turn off the lights. Season's over. That would have been amazing. And to see him and Chiellini in the same team
man, that
would
would've
have
been
been
so
totally
crazy.
epic. By the way, I saw your boy Chiellini yesterday. Look what Juve know how to treat the media, Jess.
Oh
Look
my
at
gosh, I
this.
love that. I
Got
love
a, we got a T-shirt yesterday. Your boy Chiellini was there.
yeah.
He came to say hi to everyone. Del Piero showed up and everyone went absolutely berserk. All the kids, as you can imagine, they went nuts. But yeah, I'll keep you in my heart when I'm driving down the 110 tonight.
Okay, I love that. Please do. And so moving over to Arsenal, which I'm sure that's why most of you guys are here. There's 100 of you guys in here already, which is amazing. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. So, yeah, I wanna start off kind of with, the speech that was on the most recent trailer for All or Nothing. And, it took me a while to actually listen to it because I think, uh, I was getting ready to move and stuff like that. But when
Hmm.
I finally listened to it, I was like, "Okay, this is interesting," I think it's gonna be really cool seeing some of the players and obviously Arteta behind the scenes. But what did you think about, the speech and, it was ahead of the Norwich game, which, I do think we had a pep in our step, but, it was, like, off of the back of those 3 losses and all that kinda stuff. What did you think about it? I know you're into soft factors, motivational speaking from coaches and things like that, so what'd you think of it?
Firstly, the memes that have come from that
Are
whiteboard are epic. There's one in particular that I won't mention that I absolutely loved and I probably shared like a gazillion times
mm,
with my cousins and stuff. But you know, I think that for a young team who are still growing as young men, really, they're men, right? But they're mature, but there's also a naivety to them as athletes. And when you have someone like Mikel Arteta, who, yes, this is his first job as well, and he's learning on the job. He's been in the game a long time and he's worked alongside Pep and
Mhm.
he's achieved a lot as an assistant. I thought it was poignant to try and share something where he was trying to. I'm not sure it came across like, did the players really get it? I think they probably got it at the end of the game versus
Right.
before the game. You know what I mean? I thought the
Yeah.
message was good. I thought he shared something personal, which made him human. It humanized him for me. And for me, a lot of him, Jess, has been robotic. You know,
Right.
there's a machine element to him, which I think is really good when you're a coach and stuff. But I
Mhm.
felt he humanized himself and let himself be vulnerable in front of his players. But what he was trying to explain was, the whole the emergency team being there, the people that saved his life. And I think the message was good. Some of the delivery was a bit, difficult, but lost in translation. If he'd done that in Spanish, I'm sure it would have been absolute perfection.
Mhm.
So I like to see him talk like that to connect with the players on a different level outside of just I'm your manager, you're a footballer. He's all part of the journey. So I kind of liked that part of it, which I think this Arsenal team that's finding its new DNA and profile needs. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I think, a lot of people were saying, like, they didn't know about the open heart surgery and stuff. That is something that I knew about Mikel Arteta, and sharing that story I thought was really cool of him, and my 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 thoughts on Arteta as a manager is that he's very intense. I think we'll see a lot of that during the documentary. You can see it on the sideline,
Hmm.
but I think he's somebody that does get tapped into the emotional side of things. We just don't see it all the time. I can tell that this isn't a very emotional person, and he gives 110% so that he can ask the same of his players.
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes off a little extra, but at the same time, I'd rather have extra than nothing. And so, I got what he was trying to do, connect to the players. There's also a lot of new players that were in that group, if you remember. So I think that was the first game that Tomiyasu played, and he needed to get the win. He needed to
Hmm.
connect to them and get past those 3 losses, and I like that he kinda spoke about that being the best time at the club for him in his coaching career was those players kind of being that part of his week that drove him, and
Yeah,
so
that's a great point, that
yeah,
part.
I like that. I like
'Cause do
that.
you remember when he said it, a lot of people questioned it. I did too. I'm like, "How is that the best week of your?"
Right.
Now we're seeing the clip, now we're seeing his philosophy behind it. Did it make him a better manager? And did it make him actually a better person in terms of how he communicates with his team? That's a really good point, because at the time it was a little out of context, and now we're seeing a little bit more of that. It explains where he was coming from when he said that.
I mean, he was in the mud. Let's keep it real, like,
Yeah, I mean,
they're
it
the
was.
whole team was, the club was, like, after spending the narrative was after spending 150 whatever, spending the most, they couldn't win a game, they couldn't beat Brentford, they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that, and there was already Arteta out, it was already
Mhm.
trending, and so, coming out of that feeling like that was the best, week of your life, I know that it may seem kinda corny and forced when you don't know the context, but I did like it. I didn't find it like it wasn't a Remembering the Titans, if you guys know that movie, that's just
I
my favorite
love that
movie.
movie.
Yeah, it wasn't like Remembering the Titans, like, emotional, like, you know, uh, final game of a tournament kinda thing speech. It's not a Coach Carter type speech, but
Or
it definitely
any given Sunday.
yeah. It wasn't one of those, but I definitely like that insight, so I did wanna get kinda your thoughts, on that. Now there's, like, 160 of you guys in here, so make sure you guys like the video for us.
You
So,
better. Otherwise, I'll
yeah.
have Vinny start barking on all of you.
Oh, you don't want Vinny barking. You don't want Vinny to
No,
bark
you
on you,
don't want him
man.
barking. No, man, you don't.
So, we're kind of at the tail end of preseason now. Obviously,
Thank
at the end
God.
of at the end of the show, I'm gonna get your thoughts on the Sevilla match for tomorrow. But our usual kind of, I guess, the way that we do the show is going through a statement, and then you'll tell me whether you strongly agree, you're neutral on it, disagree, or strongly disagree on that, and then we kinda have a little discussion off of the back of that. So, everybody that's in the chat, make sure you let us know what you think. But kinda my opening statement on this is that, preseason should be taken seriously by fans. What do you think about that?
Ooh, this is a good one. Um, I agree. Not not from if we don't win or get results, the sky's falling. If you look at last preseason, it was a disaster. I mean, and it was a disaster that carried on into the season. There was no confidence. The team really didn't have an identity. Arteta seemed a little bit confused about what he could do versus
Mm,
what he wanted to do with the players that he had. So he hadn't turned the squad around to what he wanted. But unfortunately, that preseason really seeped into those first three Premier League games. I think it was important to have a good preseason this time around with
mhm,
new players coming in. Imagine if Jesus hadn't have scored a goal in preseason. Imagine
mm.
if Eddie hadn't. Imagine if Saliba was a disaster. It just would have been so awful going into the new season. Now the fans are behind the squad. The Arsenal America tour was an absolute sensation. I mean, it was just insane. I actually think the American fans added on what the away fans and the fans at the Emirates did last season, and that was really just bring everyone even closer together and really root behind the team. So I think you take stock in chemistry, people fitting in, who looks fit, who might need to work out, and yes, Tuchel said it when we battered them 4-0. He takes preseason really seriously. He said he couldn't remember the last time he lost a preseason game, let alone two in a row. He thinks it's really important in terms of preparation. So don't take it overly seriously. But if it was a disaster, I think everyone would have been down our throats. If we'd have lost 4-0 to Chelsea, I think everyone would have crucified us. So I do agree that it should be taken seriously to some degree, yes.
Yeah, I agree, and I think a lot of, the viewers in the chat are talking about, the difference between taking the results really seriously and the performances really seriously, and I think for me, especially the Chelsea match, because I thought that that was our first real test. Now in hindsight, I think maybe Sevilla will be a better test because I do think Chelsea was out there looking a mess. But it was our first test on paper. I don't really count Orlando City or Nuremberg or any of those games. So going into that game, thinking, okay, we're going to be playing against somebody that, has kind of gotten the best of us sometimes. Um, we've kind of went back and forth with them. They're a rival, thinking, okay, we'll see where we're at. And man, like we came out there and
Mhm.
hold on really quick. Gotcha. So, we came out there, we were really quick, we were pressing, our energy was good, you could tell that there was a connection, but we basically just built upon what we already had last season, kind of in our best period, and adding Jesus and Zinchenko and Saliba, you could just tell, like, this is what we were supposed to be doing, this is
Mhm.
what Arteta really wanted, and I do think that in preseason last season, we didn't really have that, like, we didn't really know what our style of play was, we really struggled against Spurs and Chelsea, and so, yeah, I think I can take some stock in that performance, but I'm not about to get carried away, which I
No.
do think I saw some people getting carried away saying, "Okay, well, we're probably gonna be this and that. Let's just wait
Right.
and see," because I think Chelsea looked really bad. Like, I think them being bad did kind of contribute to us looking really good and vice versa.
Yeah.
So
I also think that sometimes that narrative, it's like when Crystal Palace, beat us to a pulp 3-0. The narrative was that we were terrible, but the truth is Crystal Palace were great. When Brentford, bitch slapped Chelsea 4-2 at Stamford Bridge, it was all about Chelsea not being great, but really Brentford were brilliant on that day. So I think we should give ourselves a little bit of credit in terms of where we've come from, because if Chelsea had done that to us in the first 35, 40 minutes in a first half, the media would have gone after us. The pundits would have said, "Oh, same old Arsenal." And and I think that was really important that we performed in that way. I also think when people need to be really careful about writing Chelsea off.
Right.
There's still another whole month to go in the transfer season. I know they look bad. They don't have an out and out goal scorer yet. I mean, they've still signed a couple of really good players. They still have really good players there. So, yeah, those are the parts of preseason where I think don't underestimate what a team might be able to do in the regular season.
Yeah, 100%. I really do think it's gonna be 6, 7 really strong teams fighting, there at the top. Obviously, with City and Liverpool, with maybe a gap, you know, between the rest of us, but West Ham is gonna be good. You can already tell, with the business that they've done. We're gonna be strong, Chelsea, Spurs, Man United, so, I don't take much in, like, what Chelsea look like, but more
Hmm.
what we look like and feeling like, "Okay, this team can compete." We finally have a goal scorer, Jesus, he looks unleashed. Um, I think the interesting thing is that, I don't know if you read Adu what he was saying about or the quote that he said when he was talking to Jesus about signing him, like, "Oh, I wanna sign you, but I wanna sign the Jesus from before, not the Jesus of last season." And
Hmm.
so I think we're gonna get a more unleashed version of Jesus, which I'm really excited about because I don't know if you feel the same way, but I do think that Pep and the way that Man City plays can be a little bit, um, plug and play, maybe a little bit robotic, and Jesus is
Stifling for
yeah.
some almost for a player like
Exactly,
him.
and
Hmm.
Jesus is Brazilian, so, are you excited maybe to see a little bit of that flair come out, and for us to have a little bit more excitement in our team because we've been credited with being a little boring as well.
Right. Now, here's one of the things I think people sometimes underestimate with footballers. And you've played the game. You have to be happy. When you're playing football, you have to be happy. Now,
Mhm,
when I see him play, he looks exceptionally happy. And like you said, unleashed. There's an energy to him. Eddie looks happy. The
mhm,
whole squad, to be honest with you, look happy. And it's weird because, yesterday when I was watching Vlahovic train, and for all of the furore around wanting to sign him, he looked off. His body language looked off. He was kind of moaning. And I'm not saying he's not going to be brilliant this season and score a lot of goals, but he just didn't look particularly happy. And that says, well, on the other hand, Angel Di Maria looked like he was having a ton of fun. Our
mhm,
players on the tours in Baltimore, you talk to the people that were there. We had Aston Mack on the show the other day. Like everyone just looks happy. Even Ben White, like who's been shat on by a lot of fans, unfairly, in my opinion, who's
mhm.
kind of going to be asked to play out a position a little bit this season, even though he's versatile, looks just happy. And that's what you need. You need somehow, I think maybe Jess, he's made players buy into the fact that some of you will play every game, some of you won't, but there's going to
Mhm.
be opportunity. And I think that's the key with Arsenal, is to have happiness. Mustafi always looked miserable. Ozil always looked miserable. Kolasinac, well, he just always looked angry. But it never seemed like a happy team. And
Yeah.
I think when you're happy and you come together and you're a footballer who wakes up every day, you like going to training, you enjoy it because it's a grind. I think that's the biggest difference to our squad is the attitude, the chemistry, and the fact that most players who are there really want to be there. And I think that's a massive point of difference for us this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving everything that and I know players say when they sign for clubs, "I've always wanted to play here and I'm so excited." But you can genuinely feel that the players that are signing really wanna be there and the players that are already there really wanna be there. You don't get that
Hmm.
sense of, like, you see because you knew with the players from before that some of them were just like, "I'm trying to be somewhere else," and that's not a good feeling, right?
Hmm.
Um, Tony says, "I feel like we had to really work for our goals last year. I could do with a few
Yeah.
easy on the eye goals, and I think Gabriel Jesus will get us a few." Do you think that maybe Jesus being, like, his certain level of quality, you can put him into this system, and then instead of it looking like, a hard to score, his quality just it just works, and that's what we need is maybe more quality in the team?
Yes. because you can see already the quality he's added. Now, the question mark's always been world class. How many world class players do Arsenal really have? Well, you could argue that probably Jesus is close to that being, you don't start for Brazil if you're not a world class player, considering how many amazing players that they have. Zinchenko, a lot of people might not consider world class, but he's so talented. I mean, the dude technically is just almost perfection. I loved him. He was top of my shopping list this season. I'm so happy that we have him. Gabriel, he can play down the middle, right? He can play on that left side. Imagine him and Zinchenko kind of busting up that flank together. Gabriel likes to turn in, he can turn out. I love the idea that before I was like, don't put square pegs in round holes. And the difference, I think, between the square peg and round hole last season and previous is don't play Xhaka at left back. Don't leave Sambi, stranded in midfield. Now it's not square pegs in round holes. It's versatile players who can play multiple positions. I don't know if you and I talked about it or if you mentioned it to me as well, Jess, about there's a difference between having a player who's a specialist versus having a player who can play in multiple positions. I
Mhm.
think the Maitland-Niles experiment of multiple positions is over, right?
Yeah.
Whereas a Zinchenko is exactly what we need. A Ben White is exactly what we need. A Gabriel is exactly what we need.
Mhm.
I think he'll be in the running for the Golden Boot, but we'll come to
Yeah.
that maybe.
Yeah, we will come to that 100%. You're reading my mind. There's 250 of you guys in here. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. We'll get back into the Jesus conversation in a little bit. If you guys are just joining, we did kind of talk about Arteta's speech on the All or Nothing trailer, a little bit about how seriously we should take preseason. And my next statement to you is that Reiss Nelson deserves a chance to impress Mikel Arteta this season.
Strongly agree. And
Ooh.
I put up this graphic on the show the other day, and it was Torreira, Bellerin, Maitland-Niles, Leno, and Reiss Nelson was part of that graphic. And to me, he's the one that deserves a chance. I thought that when he did play in the America tour, that he did a really good job. And the reason I say strongly agree, Jess, is because C filed under Eddie Nketiah, right? I'm not saying Eddie Nketiah is the answer. And I'm not sure Eddie can do it over multiple games being the one guy you rely on. I do think he's a kind of guy that can come in, do a job. He's going to get to play. I think that when he came in at the end of the season and he had a compact number of games to play in, that's his jam. He could do that. He can deliver that. But Arteta always believed in him. I didn't want him anywhere near the first team. Hold my hands up. And I still have to be convinced about him. And maybe that's unfair. But because of that and because of Eddie, I think Reiss does deserve a shot. I think of all the players, the fringe players that are around, he's someone that could come in and do a job, especially we've got an extra competition this season. We've got the domestic cups and we've got the Premier League. So, yes, strongly agree. What about you?
Yeah,
Dun, dun,
I'm gonna go with
dun.
neutral on this,
Eh.
veering towards disagree. But, I mean, here's the thing, with
Did I sell
Reiss,
you a little bit?
I mean, look, the thing is like, if I see you in your Arsenal kit and, you're doing your thing and you look good, like, you look like you're fit and ready to go, then, of course, I start to think like, "Oh, well, maybe," and with Reece, I think he looked good, in preseason so far. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but during one of the water breaks, it might have been against Orlando City. We had a water break and Reece was out there on the pitch and he came, to the sideline and Arteta's talking and he's just looking in his eyes and he's listening and saying, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I'm thinking to myself, like, this guy's keyed in. And maybe he does feel like, because remember, he was supposed to go on a loan and he decided to stay because he wanted to fight for his place. Now, that didn't really work out for him, but Reiss Nelson is Arsenal through and through, and maybe he does feel like if there's any opportunity for him to stay and fight for his place at Arsenal, he's gonna do that, and I think people forget that before Willian, before any of that, Reiss Nelson was Arteta's guy. When Arteta first came in, the first young player that he took under his wing was not Bukayo Saka, it was Reiss Nelson. I remember him starting against Leeds, I think in the Carabao Cup or something like that. And so, but he kept getting injured. And then I get a sense of unseriousness from Reiss Nelson, or I did. And then he got those injuries, he couldn't stay fit, and then we sent him on the loan to Feyenoord. It took him almost a whole entire season to get up to speed, but when he did, the Feyenoord fans were like, "Oh, we'd like to keep him." And
Mhm.
now he's back here. And, we do need numbers, we need bodies, we need players that can contribute in those attacking areas because we're maybe a little bit light there, depending on who you talk to. But, I think Reiss Nelson is working really hard to get back to where he wants to be, and that's fair enough. If we did keep him, because I think we'll only keep one of him or Marquinhos. Either Reiss Nelson will be sold or Marquinhos will go on a loan. I don't foresee both of them being in the team, but whoever it is, I just want them to be ready to work hard and really make a play, and really try to push because you don't want these like guys that are not going to play any games, right? You want people pushing for the starting position. So for me, it's a little bit neutral. I need to see more. And if he gets the chance to play against Sevilla, maybe he'll really make an impact. But Joshua, makes an interesting point saying we need another winger or maybe even just an attacker, regardless of restaying. Do you
I agree
agree
with
with
that.
that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. Because there's certain players I don't need to see Bellerin play another game. I just don't. I
Right.
don't need to see Maitland-Niles. I don't need to see, any of those players play another game. We know what they offer. We've seen what they offer. Reiss Nelson, I think, a little bit different. Yes, we've seen him, but I don't think we've seen, again, in a team that's better. He's had to operate when he's had to come on, Jess, as well, to be fair to some of these
Mhm.
players, in really broken sides with definitely a broken chemistry, and it was never right for a long, long time. But I agree wholeheartedly with Josh. I think another winger is needed because past our best 11, we still have a thin squad. I think we've got better players in that are going to make our first 11 even better, and maybe a couple different players that can come off the bench. But also, is Patino not in the game? Is he going? There's certain players as well. Again,
Yeah.
where there's not many answered questions. Do you agree, Jess?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there's a lot of questions over some of these fringe players at the moment. Um, I mean, I think most of them, like, I did say that out of all the fringe kind of players, Marie, Reese, Pepe, Bellerin, that Torreira, if any of them stayed and I had to choose one, it was Reiss Nelson. 'Cause he's offended me the least out of them, you know? Some of these guys just cannot come back for me. They just can't come back for
How
me,
much has
and
Pepe offended you, Jess?
oh, he's definitely offended me a lot. Everybody on this channel knows. I mean, they get upset with me. They say, "Every single show, you have to throw shots at Pepe," and you are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. But, yeah, Reiss Nelson for me, if one of them had to stay, he's the one that I would choose because, yeah, like, I think I mean, wasn't he the best and brightest coming out of Haaland at one point?
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah.
mean, that doesn't really mean anything, but it does mean something a little bit, right? I mean, out of everybody, you'd probably back him because he's a Haalender. I mean,
Hmm.
Maitland-Niles as well, but he's really the one for me, so
I think Maitland-Niles has made his own bed, right? There's if I don't know, maybe it's different. When you want to play a certain position, I get it. That's the position you want to play. Kev always says, like, I just want to play football. Where do you want me? Okay. And then I'll show you that I can play in this position consistently. Maybe I get my chance. So I think Maitland-Niles has always had a bit of an attitude with regards to that. But I think Reese I think he's acted like a professional. And it does, like what's happening with Aziz. And again, Patino's the one, he came on for a few minutes in the behind closed door game against Brentford. And again, that shows you, I know, look at the team though, but that's the fringe guys.
yeah.
Those, that, and once again, it's like our first loss of the preseason, but not our starting 11. So it's indicative of the fact that there's still a lot of work to do.
100%. I did see, iGamer was, like, asking me a question about turning down 25 million offer for Reiss Nelson. I'm I may be hopeful that Reiss
Mm,
Nelson can do something, but I'm not crazy. Okay, if somebody offers this 20, he has 1 year left on his deal. And that's the other part of this, right? Is that if he was gonna stay, I think he would have to sign a new deal because you can't really lose that player for free. I would I would not like that, so he has to sign a new deal. But if somebody were to offer 25 million now, of course I'd take it, because you can go ahead and add that to whatever else we have left and bring in a better player. So for me, it's just about like if I had to choose somebody to stay, it would be Reiss Nelson. But
yeah.
I actually I'm very like it is what it is no matter what happens. If he goes, I'm cool. If he stays, I'm kind of cool.
But how many players are we going to lose on a free? I mean, we've just been giving players away.
Yeah.
And that's something that, you know, I'm sure is going to stop, or we're trying to stop. But until all of those kind of bad contract, out of contract players we can't sell, nobody wants to buy them, go,
Mhm.
there's no other option for the club than to let, Bellerin, get out of the remainder of his contract and let him go away. Fine. He goes with our blessing. Um, we had money on the table to sell Maitland-Niles for maybe 22 million a couple seasons ago. Didn't do it because we felt like maybe he was still part of the plan. And I only feel like that was the case because there were no other options and the club really didn't have that roadmap yet. So these things we need to be careful of, and we can't be repeat offenders.
Yeah, for sure. Like I in the future, I would like for Arsenal to sell before it's obvious that we need to sell. Um, Barcelona at one point was offering like 50 million for Bellerin. Should have taken it, like, and I know people would have been like, well, he's our best player, but with you could find another right back that's quick like Bellerin for way less than that, So I do think that there's some things that we need to work on, but ultimately we're kind of getting there, So
Yeah.
yeah, but there's 300 of you guys in here now, which is insane. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. So my next statement to you is Pepe will stay at Arsenal.
That Instagram post really presented a pickle for everybody, didn't it? It's like, dude, what? You sacked your agent and you grinded and worked out a little bit, but are you really going to change as a player?
Mhm.
I mean, my personal take is I strongly disagree. Wipe the
Mhm.
slate clean, get them all gone. Turn the tables and just move on. But with the way you've positioned the question, personally for me, is I strongly disagree. Is Arteta going to give him another chance? I don't know. I think players like Pepe are going to be end of the window, last minute. The Pablo Maris, the Pepes, the Maitland Niles. It's either going to be loan deals, get them off the wage bill, or sell. And again, who's going to buy Pepe? What has he shown last season and in preseason that would make a team fork out 20 plus for him? There was talk of Leeds for him as a replacement for Rafinha, and I thought, well, that might be a good fit for him. He could revitalize his career there. But how much are they going to pay for him? Would you pay 20
Well,
million plus for him right now, Jess?
you know who I don't know if I see Leeds doing it, but you know who may do it is Newcastle.
Newcastle?
Yeah, I mean, they have the ability to take on his wages and also, spend the cash for the fee. I think it's gonna have to be a, um, a Premier League club that takes him on
Mm,
because they're the only ones that are gonna wanna take on those wages. I think that's our big issue with Pepe is not necessarily the fee, but he's on like 120 grand per week, and that's a lot for a lot of clubs. So I look at Newcastle, I think for a lot of these clubs, even though they're interested in Pepe, I do envision him being not a number 1 or number 2 option, but a number 3 after they look at other options that they really want. And if he's still hanging around at the end of the window, he'll be the one that they go for, maybe on a loan with an obligation to buy or something like that. Don't see
Mhm.
anybody just giving us the cash.
What
So
Jess, what happened to the Pepe who was there was one period where he had scored, I mean, he scored the most goals against, I remember why not play him against Brighton? He scored more goals than any Arsenal player, and Mikel Arteta doesn't play him. There's a couple of comments in the chat about how Mikel Arteta has managed him perhaps, but
Mhm,
there was a time where he was up there in the assists. He's scoring goals. That run to the FA Cup, I think, was the best we'd seen that front
mhm.
three with Laka and Oba. What happened to him?
I mean, my theory is Willian happened to him, right after the FA Cup, where I think that was the perfect opportunity to build upon Pepe. We were playing Lacazette, Aubameyang, and Pepe, and they turned around and brought in Willian. And I think that showed a lack of trust in Pepe, where maybe he had earned a little bit of that towards the end of the season. And I know he's not the ideal or typical Arteta player, but I mean, he did well in the FA Cup. He really did. And so when you bring in another player, and remember, Willian started for us for a long time, 8, 9 games in a row, doing nothing and was starting games on high wages. And so I think at that point, that was the end. That was the end. You had him playing well, doing tricks, against Marcus Alonso, again, in the FA Cup final, really keyed in, looked like he was into it. And then you turn
Mhm.
around and bring in a free signing, a 32-year-old, from Chelsea, and you sit Pepe back on the bench. And then
Yeah.
after that, Saka was playing in that position. So for me, I think that's pretty much what happened. I mean, do you kind
Yeah,
of
no,
agree with
I do.
me?
And I think that's where the straw broke the camel's back for a lot of Arsenal fans in what is Arteta doing? Why are you putting faith in what a lot of people perceive to be an remember what I said about Happy? Talk about a player who never wanted to join Arsenal, didn't want to leave Chelsea really, found himself in a situation where he was so unhappy, couldn't perform, and he was still being picked over a player who was the record signing of the club and was actually doing quite well. So there's part of me that this does have empathy for Pepe. And so if I sit back and think, does he deserve another shot? And if you can't get the money for him, are you better off keeping him, cutting your losses? I mean, the wage bill was cut dramatically in January. I know that, we still have some financial issues that we need to work out and stuff like that. But he's really the biggest pickle of all for me. Because he came with such high stakes, Jess, and at such a
Right.
high price, and the expectations was so high for him.
Mhm.
Um, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him.
Yeah, hopefully we can move him on, because if he gets into the last year of his contract, I fear we will lose him on a free.
Oh
So this
gosh,
is
yeah.
really the best opportunity to, move him on, but we'll definitely see, like, I won't keep going on with the Pepe slander because I know you guys don't like it. So we'll move on to the next statement, and my next statement for you, Soph, is Arsenal should keep Leno as a number 2 and not sell him to Fulham.
Wow, this was a conversation we had the other night. A
Mm,
lot of people do not believe in Matt Turner
mm,
and have not been impressed with him. I'd like to remind everybody that there was a meltdown when we bought Aaron Ramsey last year and Tommy Yasu. And I think we need to be careful about that. Now, here's a guy who really wants to play at Arsenal. He loves the club. He's been a supporter his whole life. That doesn't mean that he deserves to start or play, but he's a serious athlete. We covered him here in MLS. He's played under the best manager here, Bruce Arena, and he has kept Zach Steffen out of the US men's national team for a while and will potentially be the US's number one for the World Cup. And that team is laden with young talent, exciting prospects that many of you have seen play in Europe. Is he great on the ball? No. He actually throws the ball out better with his arms than he does play out the back with his feet. Um, is he a good shot stopper? That's what he's known for here. Did he
mhm.
illustrate that in preseason? Not so much. But are we going to kill him for 2 preseason games? Are we going to give him a shot? Leno wants to be a starter. Matt Turner is willing to be a backup and maybe get his chances in domestic cups. Leno, some Arsenal fans just think is better than Ramsdale as a keeper. And I
Mm.
think maybe in certain aspects, if we do their attributes, like a computer game and stuff, I'm sure there's one where the other way outweighs the other. Um, I like Leno. I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for him. He's been respectful to the club as well. This is a fantastic question. I think he needs to leave because he wants to be the starter. There's no way he's going to dislodge Ramsdale as the starter. Arsenal fans are probably going to panic though if Ramsdale gets injured. So I'm a bit neutral on this one because I'd like to see Matt Turner be given a shot. I'm not saying he's the best keeper, but I understand why there's question marks.
Yeah, I can understand it as well, especially, if you don't know anything about Matt Turner and then the first game that you see him play, he did not play well. And I was very honest about that. I thought he had a terrible debut in that first game. But, when it comes to Leno, I do think that people have to remember that Leno wants to be a number one. It's a World Cup year. He needs to be, and he deserves to be a number one somewhere. And we can't just keep him because we're afraid of Matt Turner. And I've never seen a fan base so obsessed with number 2 goalkeepers. We don't need a really good number 2 goalkeeper. No one has a number 2 goalkeeper that is just as good as their number 1. Look at Manchester City. They have, Ederson, and then it's Zach Steffen, who's gone out on loan, but nominally, that's the person that they would have. He's not as good as Ederson. Let's keep it real.
Right.
Adrian, he's still backing up Allison at Liverpool, and he's had many, many, many mares in his career at Liverpool. So
Look at
for me,
Chelsea's number two. He's had some mares.
yeah,
Um,
and they paid a lot for him, and he's
a
on
lot.
high wages. It's for me, it's not deep. It's not deep, and I think as long as they can deputize for the number 1 in early, um, stage group games and cups, it's fine, and I get why people are worried because of that 1 game, or maybe 2 games if that's what you call it, but, you gotta let Leno go and do his thing. He's a number 1, and that's
Yeah.
what he wants to do. He doesn't wanna stay, and be number 2, you know?
I think there's a I say this with respect, there is a little prejudice towards American players, and I'm kind of sick of it to be honest with you. You know, Everyone compares MLS and says this and that. MLS doesn't compare itself to all the other leagues around the world. It's creating its own legacy. It is what it is. And it's going to be a place where a lot of players come to play in years to come. If you think I'm crazy, go read Simon Cooper's book Soccernomics about where he thinks the emerging market is for football and the attraction for many reasons for players around the world. So it's the same thing that Tyler Adams has faced, McKennie's faced, Desta's faced. You know, all it's like, can we just stop this madness? So you will accept a player coming from a remote place anywhere in the world, but they come from MLS, and it feels like people want to kill them for it. So I do think there is a bit of a prejudice towards it, and I'm rooting for Matt Turner. I really am.
Yeah, I am too. I'm rooting for him, but I also don't expect to see him very much. You know, we had a good season if we didn't see him very much. That's the
He'll
reality.
play in the League Cup. He'll play
Yeah,
in the League Cup or the early stages of the FA Cup. Actually, I think Arteta's going to want to right some wrongs in the FA Cup this year. So you may see Ramsdale starting from the start.
100%. Diallo says, thank you so much for your super chat as well. Says the neutral opinion makes it indecisive. What I like about neutral is that you can have no real opinion on something. I think sometimes we want to have really strong opinions on things, and there's some topics that you just don't,
Hmm.
and I think that that's real. There's some things that for me are just not that serious. So I have a neutral opinion on them. It could go either way. And so I think neutral is valid. It doesn't force you to make a strong statement, but sometimes you just don't have one. And I think that that's fine.
I agree. There's someone, a C2 Dallas, MLS is not even championship level. I'll tell you something. I guarantee you, I will put a bet on this. All right. I'm not neutral on it either. This LAFC team would beat Norwich home and away from last season.
Yeah, probably.
I
Yeah.
absolutely would bet money on that. I think they would have beaten Watford as well. Be careful, you know, because you may look at it as a league as a whole, but there sometimes a team emerges and it would be really interesting to see them play a championship team or a Norwich or a Watford. So I hear what you're saying. I'm not saying they'll beat the top level teams in the Premier League, but this current LAFC team, I think will give a lot of teams in those lower leagues or at the bottom of the Premier League a go. There you go.
I
I'll get off my
agree.
soapbox now, Jess.
I love that. Get on your soapbox. So, yeah, I mean, with Turner, you guys know how I feel about it. Do I think he's, like, amazing or, like, gonna be our number 1? No, but he's a backup.
Yeah.
Backups are usually just whatever, it's not that deep. So, yeah, my next okay, so going back to the Jesus conversation, um, I got a good one for you.
All right.
Gabby Jesus will score more goals than Raheem Sterling this season. What do you
Everyone.
think?
I like this one. Wow, you got a good voice, eh? Go on, bust out the tune.
That's all I got. That's it.
By the way, I just thought to myself, I'll call it the Soph box, not the soapbox. I may have a thing going there now. I could do
Yeah,
a
the
little segment.
soapbox, I like
Jess,
that.
I strongly agree with you on this one. And I asked his international teammate and friend Danilo last night
But
while I had him about what he thinks. He thinks he's going to score bags of goals in the Premier League. He's rooting for him. He loves him as a friend, of course. Thinks he'll succeed, and I think that Jesus will score more goals than Sterling. I do. I think he will be challenging for the Golden Boot. Touch wood, he stays fit, and gosh, wrap him up in cotton. Another one I want to wrap it up in cotton wool and put on the windowsill like Saka, like keep him safe. Yeah, I do. I think he'll score more goals than Sterling. I think he will be the signing of the summer. Based on what we know now, there's still a month to go. But if I'm putting my money on a you know, everyone looking back and saying, why didn't we sign him? For me, I think he can do it. I really do. I think he'll be challenging like the Canes and the Sons for the Golden Boot.
yeah, I mean, I think with Jesus, there's a misconception around whether or not he's a good striker, and he did struggle in some seasons at Manchester City. But what can't be denied is that statistically, when he starts games, he scores in almost every single game that he starts. When he
Hmm.
comes off the bench, he struggles a little bit more. And at Arsenal, he's gonna start most games, like all of them. He's gonna be
Hmm.
the guy. And I think, again, like kind of piggybacking off of our early conversation, he's gonna be unleashed. He's gonna be able to play his way. And I do think that the situation that he's in at Arsenal and the situation that Sterling is in at Chelsea, I do think that Gabriel Jesus will score more. I really do. I think he'll have a 15 to 20 goal season in the Premier League alone. Who knows what he'll do in other cups and stuff like that. But yeah, like I think Gabriel Jesus is going to be one of those signings that we look back on um, and think this was just a masterclass really from us because there was a lot of people that were apprehensive, so a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
people that were, not sure he's a Manchester City reject. We need a pure striker. Isn't he a winger? I'm just not sure about him. And I just kept saying, just wait. He walks straight into this team and he's the best player on the team. And I know some people didn't like that because what about Saka? What about Martinelli? But the first game that he played against Nuremberg when he came in, you could see that the level is just different, right? And so,
90 seconds.
yeah, 25 years old, just hitting his prime, could really go up a couple levels with Arsenal. And so I'm getting huge Alexis Sanchez vibes from him, but better because I think he's a more of a team player. Do you get that vibe from
It's
him that he
less
could be
less
somewhat of an
selfish.
Alexis? Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even in his, he comes on 90 seconds, he scores. And he's learned when you play for Pep Guardiola, there's no I. It's impossible to be like a narcissist. You can't. He won't allow it. You will never play for him. And when he came out, he said, I don't want to be the superstar. I want to win things with a team. And that's the mentality. What I love, Zinchenko and Jesus are only 25 years old, right? And everyone says we have a young team. They're 25, but they have a ton of experience. And
Yeah.
they come with experience playing in very high pressure situations. Zinchenko had a huge part to play in City's last game of the season. You know, they've played in the Champions League. They've been challenging and winning Premier Leagues. You know, they've been perennial winners in the League Cup. They know and they're adaptable. The competition, you know, different strokes, different strategies and tactics. And they're 25, but they're experienced. Now we have like Ben White is like 22, 23, or Gabriel. They don't have the same experience in game playing
Mm.
in those situations. So they bring something very unique to the table. And Jesus, I think, comes with, you know, that teammate mentality. And I think that's really important for us, especially. So, yeah, I tell you what I'd love is if he scored more goals than Holland.
Yeah, of course, like, scoring more goals than Holland would be amazing. When I think my biggest thing with Jesus is I know he's gonna score against the small teams,
Hmm.
but I hope he gives us the ability to score against the big teams as well. You know, that's something we've really struggled with, carrying a threat against City, Liverpool, you know, teams like that, especially away from home. So I'm
But we
hoping
still
he
don't
gives
have an aerial threat, Jess.
you know how I feel about I don't think we need it. You know, I know
Well,
you think
yeah, I know on set pieces we do, but just I know. But listen, 5 months ago on my show, you were raving about Jesus,
oh,
and we talked about him, and I loved him too. But you were like, "This is the guy." This five
oh,
months
yeah.
ago, Jess was talking about this guy being the guy we should go after.
Oh,
Um,
when the rumors started to come out, I was like, "It's happening." Like, it's really happening, and I knew that he wouldn't be somebody that everybody was unanimously on board with because of all the things that we've spoken about. Not
mhm.
really an aerial threat, you know, some people want a traditional striker, you know, seen as maybe a reject, you know, his statistics aren't amazing all the time, but there's just something about him. I think what for me, what it's always been is about his work rate. You could just tell that he wanted it really badly. Sometimes I thought he maybe wanted it too much to the point where he almost psyched himself out, and that's why he would, you know, kick the ball over the net or, you know, not finish easy chances. But all I really got was a player that just wanted it really badly, and I feel like we've missed out on that. Players that want it so badly that they'll do anything. You know, they give you 110% for the entire 90 minutes and then some. So, you know, I thought if we ever had an opportunity, he's somebody that I would bring in, especially with the way that we were playing with Lacazette. But I couldn't be happier, and I know a lot of people are like, "Yeah," so they're coming around to it. I get that he still needs to prove it in the league and with Arsenal, but I think so far, so good. You know?
Yeah,
I can't
yeah,
complain.
yeah. He's Arteta's pressing dream.
Yeah, for sure, and it's nice to see a team that's pressing together and that part of
Mhm.
it coming together, and so that's the last of my statements, but I did wanna ask you, you know, just going into, you know, the new season starts, like, within a week, and so, it looks like we're pretty prepared, but for you, like, our first 3 games, let me see, let me make sure I have them. We have Crystal Palace away, at home against Leicester City, and then, away to Bournemouth. For you, what's the most, like, winnable game and the most losable game in those 3?
Um, Crystal Palace is the one that worries me the most, and I think that's the revenge that has to be, we got to seek revenge there. And I really do not want to lose that game because I don't want everyone to have a meltdown, and I'm going to do my best not to.
Mhm.
Last season, after 3 games, no goals, no points, I totally wanted Arteta gone. I think it was reasonable to suggest that maybe he wasn't the right guy. And everyone will say, well, he didn't have his team then. Well, still you can manage a team to some type of result, get a
Right.
point. Don't lose to those teams, right? Leicester, I think, have some issues, and their transfer window has been horrific. They haven't really strengthened their squad. Um, we generally play well against them, but also at home, the stinger was that Vardy goal that I think a lot of us still
Yeah.
remember very vividly. Bournemouth is an absolute must 3 points, Jess. There's no excuses there. You know,
Mm.
they're coming up, a bit of a yo yo team. Respectfully, you know, I think everyone respected them when Eddie Howe was manager and Scott Parker has done a good job, but I think we got to win that.
Yeah.
So even if we get a point against Palace, it's not a disaster. We've got to win our home games and we've
Mm.
got to beat Bournemouth. So if we got a draw against Palace, a win against Leicester, and a win against Bournemouth, that's a pretty decent start to the season. And I think a respectable start to the season.
Yeah, I have to keep it real. We need to beat Crystal Palace. Like, I'm not having it. Like, I know they're kind of like a bogey team for us, and going to Selhurst Park is difficult, but we owe them. That game that we played against them after the break where we lost 3-0 was the start to the end of our season. Granite said
Terrific.
it the best, that it wasn't the Newcastle and Spurs match. It was those 3 that we lost in a row, and Crystal Palace started that. So, for me, we gotta smack them. And I know that they're good and reinvigorated by Patty and all that kinda stuff, and I love him, but they deserve a smackdown. They do, and they're just a team that we don't really match up well against. They have very physical, athletic players, some very skillful players as well, Zaha, Olise, Eze, but mostly I thought we couldn't cope with the physicality, and so hopefully, um, the technical team that we're building is so good on the day that they can't really touch the ball and we just kinda do our thing. But again, even Man City, the most technical team in the league, struggled and drew against, Crystal Palace. So, I think we'll struggle against them. Maybe we'll get the win, but Bournemouth and Leicester, I expect us to beat them, especially Bournemouth. But even Leicester, like, I don't fear them. You know, if Yuri Tielemans is still playing for them, it would be a good idea for him to kick the ball in the back of his own net, before he comes to Arsenal, do us a solid. But yeah, I expect no less than 7 points. I think we'll draw at least one of those games, but, um, no less than 7 for those first 3, you
Yeah.
know?
We have for the sake of everything, we have to get off to a good start this season. We cannot have the same outcome as last season. And some people will say if we do, well look what happened. Don't panic. It's going to be okay. We turned it around last season and almost got into the Champions League. Well, almost kind of costs you a little bit, you know, without Champions League football, you have, yeah, okay, we've done well in the transfer market,
Mhm.
but you can do a little bit better when you have Champions League football to offer. Thankfully, we have the Europa League carrot to dangle in front of players too. So, yeah, we got to get off to a great start.
I agree. And so just to finish up here, I just wanna ask you just, loose, what do you expect from tomorrow's game? It's preseason, Sevilla, but we're close to the season. So, what are your
Yeah,
expectations there?
I think now we need to see the starting 11. Like the game against Chelsea, I think was the basically kind of how we're probably going to start the season. Tomiyasu's injury is a little bit worrying, but
Mm.
I mean, I don't know you know, who was it who said to me, we've signed the Japanese Kieran Tierney. I can't remember
No.
who said that to me, but I goes like, bite your tongue. Uh, the good news is, Jess, do you think Ben White can play that role for a long period in terms of what is required? So if you've got Zinchenko on the other side and you've got Ben White on the other side, do you think he can sustain that for
Yeah.
a long period and actually bust forward, put in crosses, or to talk just real quick? I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you that. Hmm?
No, I do because when he played for Brighton, he played in a back 3, and,
Yeah,
like, the kind of the way that they played is they let Lamptey go forward and him and Dunk and Um, Dan
the,
Burn, I
Burn,
think
yeah,
were the 3. There might have been somebody else there, but let's just say it was Dan Burn, but, Ben White pretty much played that position. That's kinda what he did, and I don't think he's going to bomb forward. He's gonna play similarly to the way Tomiyasu did, which more like a inverted midfield role. Kinda go forward sometimes, but you're not gonna get, like, that overlapping continuously. Um, but I think he can do it, and I think it suits us well to I know that, Tomiyasu's injury is bad,
Mhm.
but what it does enable us to do is give Saliba minutes at the beginning of the season and also play Ben White and maybe try to get Saliba on that new deal by giving him those minutes. If Tomiyasu was fit, I do fear that Arteta may feel like the decision is difficult. He may do well, I'm gonna play White and Tomiyasu, and then Saliba has to work his way in. It gives Saliba some really good minutes at the beginning, and maybe he can get a good feeling of what it's like to be at Arsenal playing in the Premier
Mhm.
League. So I do think Ben White can do it. I have a lot of faith in Ben. I think he gets a lot of unnecessary criticism,
Yeah.
based on price tag and the Saliba situation, but I trust him to play right back, and, my expectation against Sevilla is for us to see the exact same, back line
Mhm.
starting that game. Zinchenko, White, Saliba, and Gabriel, and start building that continuity.
I think that's pretty strong. That's a
Yeah.
pretty strong back line, and I agree with you. I have faith in White. I was just wondering what your thoughts were on him doing it long term
Oh,
if
100%.
Tomiyasu's gonna
It's
be
a good one.
ducking in and out of the side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
when
also,
you
what a great 3 games for Saliba to come into. The Palace, Leicester, Bournemouth. It's a great 3 stretch match to get your feet under the table in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think he needs a test, but he also needs it to kinda be winnable.
Mhm.
So, you don't want his first game to be against Liverpool,
No.
away from home. I think that's too much, especially because the team tends to struggle. But, away from home at Crystal Palace, he'll get that initial, like, "Okay, this is what it's about." He'll be playing against Zaha and Mateta and, Olise. That's a
Mhm.
really good test, but a winnable one at that. You'll also have against Bournemouth, that's a very winnable game, and Leicester against Vardy.
Yeah,
So, I think
they've got some
it's a good
dangerous
one for
players.
him. Yeah, I really do think, like, Saliba is so good, and he's shown that in this preseason. I hope we get to keep him. But, yeah, that's kinda my expectations. I hope that we beat Sevilla tomorrow, obviously. Maybe another Gabby Jesus goal, maybe another Nketiah goal, and for us to see that starting lineup look kinda the way it did against Chelsea, because I thought it was um, pretty strong, you know? I really did.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
So you
Very
guys
cool.
yeah. So, you guys, we're gonna end it there because 'cause it's been about an hour. I don't wanna keep you guys too long. I know it's a little bit late, but, I'll be back tomorrow after our game to do, like, a little review, talk to you guys about, like, who did well, who didn't, those types of things, so make sure you guys join there. Obviously, me and Sophie are doing these shows, every, like, 2 weeks or so you wanna keep up with that. Next time, the show will actually be on the Highbury Squad. Anything going on tomorrow at Highbury Squad?
Not tomorrow. We're back Monday with our kickoff for the new season. Massive predictions show. We got Lee Gianni judges on Potsy and Simiu and Tom Canton to give their predictions. And
Mm.
Jess, I'm going to need yours as well, so I'm going to send you the list. Okay.
Oh, I love it. I love
Yeah.
predictions. So, yeah, let's get
Cool.
that done, and so,
Awesome.
yeah, you guys, that's it for kinda content-ish. I'll be at Football Terrace Night Out, tomorrow. And then on Wednesday on the football terrace, we'll be doing a live show. It won't be viewable for you guys, but at least you guys will know I'm there. So follow me on Twitter and stuff and on Instagram, and I'll show you guys what's going on there. But this is an excellent show. Thank you so much, Sophie, for joining me. Make sure you guys follow Sophie at Soccer Diva and at the Highbury Squad so that you guys can keep up with what she's up to. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one tomorrow. Let's do it. Talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'all.